Hello and welcome to Lunchtime Politics on Channels Television. I'm Millicent Nwaka. On the news this hour, is the presidency buying time to see out the tenure of the 8th Assembly? Legal experts react to the extension of the acting Chief Justice of Nigeria's tenure following easy confirmation of the CJN. The senior pastor of the Lateran Assembly, Pastor Bakare, tasks federal government to bridge the unemployment gap to address insecurity. The Budget Office of the Federation speaks on the controversy surrounding the fuel subsidy removal and the 2019 to 2020 medium-term expenditure framework. Welcome everyone to the program. We kick off this Easter Monday following the alarming increase of insecurity across the country. Nigeria's former vice president and the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, has called on the federal government to put an end to its empty rhetorics and take urgent action. The former vice president made the call Monday, where he lamented that when the punishment for crimes are not forthcoming, criminals are emboldened to commit even worse crimes. He stressed the need to keep Nigeria safe for Nigerians and foreigners, noting that as long as there is impunity, the nation would lack unity and security. In a series of tweets, he added that the death of any Nigerian or foreigner from terror, crime, or insecurity grieves his heart, stressing that nobody's life is worth taking to advance a religious, political, or criminal cause. He stated that impunity must end and must end today. These crimes continue to reoccur because previous killings had not been met with justice. The senior pastor and general overseer of the Lateran Assembly, Pastor Bakare, says crime rates in the country cannot be effectively tackled until due attention is paid on job creation and human capital development. In an exclusive chat with Channels Television on the Easter celebrations, Pastor Bakare also charged President Muhammadu Buhari to ensure that he appoints the best hands in order to succeed in his second term in office.
Insecurity is not new. We have been invaded from outside and from within. What do you think will happen to millions of jobless youth who have no way of providing for themselves? Crime will be the next option. So we need to create jobs and more jobs and more jobs. We have neglected the greatest asset of any nation, human capital. Our education system had gone, down the drain. We need to revive all that. I read that they're given 300 certificates for universities. I'm just amazed. They are glorified secondary schools. Let us solidify the ones we have. It's okay to start universities. It's okay to have private universities, but let's maintain standard. Your being insecure can become a threat to my security. I don't want to be a rich man in a secured island of prosperity in the midst of quicksand of poverty, because those children we do not train and we do not equip will rise to fight. Almajiris will rise to fight. Area boys will rise to fight. And once the Almajiris in the north and the area boys in the south join hands together, we are not all safe. It's in our enlightened interest. I don't want to use self alone, corporate interest, to ensure that there's a future for our young people and for the children.
Madam Gloria. Well, job creation has been identified as one of the solutions to the nation's insecurity. Let's now examine the master plan of the federal government and how this will address the nagging security challenge in the country. Joining us is the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Job Creation, Mr. Afolabi Imokwede. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks. Happy Easter.
Same to you. So let's ask you first, are you of the opinion, the school of thought, that unemployment is fueling Nigeria's insecurity?
Well, so not, how do I put this? In some way, yes. But in another way, we also need to understand that there's also religious extremism that's not necessarily tied to unemployment. So it all really has to do with what happens, how we check with our religious leaders. Let's also remember that just yesterday as well, Easter Sunday, We had the global issue in Sri Lanka, where it was targeted primarily at churches and hotels where you have a lot of Western visitors. So there is the global rising tide of terrorism. There is the rising tide of extremism of different forms, and all of these, bear the same trend, of, these attacks. Yeah. So on one hand, that's something that we also need to bear in mind. However, yes, when you look at the cadre, the age group of a lot of these converts into this extremism of any sort, some of it obviously fall within the cadre of those that you will see are most hit with the unemployment statistics.
It's interesting that you're saying, it's extremism, even though they've been branded bandits. We've also heard herdsmen's attacks, different names in Nigeria, but it's also very disturbing. But the federal government, they've talked about many schemes that they've put in, to assuage the job creation, unemployment, but this hasn't helped. We're still the poverty capital of sub-Saharan Africa, and according to the World Bank, that seems to be rising.
Well, I don't know that when you say it hasn't helped, then perhaps it would have been worse if we didn't have some of our policies in place. So that's something, I don't think that narrative is properly right. And when you also talk about poverty capital of the world, we again just didn't wake up to become poverty capital. And again, let's also put things in context that the numbers by which 80-something million people at the time, with this report, the World Bank report you quote, relative to, relative to what? A few years ago, that same number was 110 million. And it had come down, to 80-something million. So in terms of poverty now, not just really not just the youths, but also the different categories of humans.
So you're saying you've created a lot of jobs.
So what I'm saying is that there have been efforts, and the efforts have been yielding fruits. As you know, agriculture is one big area that this administration, because again, when we talk about job creation, let's also remember that 3.5 years in the life of an administration in context to the life of a nation is such a short period of time. And so, but when we've got to measure ourselves with what we've been able to do, considering what we met, on ground.
But we've heard that. We've heard that over time. But I don't think Nigerians want to hear that. They want to have jobs.
But you must also know what we're doing.
Where is the conducive environment for people to work? Where's the path?
Now let's be able to unpack things properly. When you talk about jobs, agriculture is one area where we've done a whole lot of work, and there's been a whole lot of reforms. And if you see, there are a lot of small businesses, small businesses, even technology-driven small businesses like the Tribe Agrics and all that is happening in that space. A lot of aggregation is happening. A lot of exports are also happening in the agri space. And there are not old people in the jobs. There are a lot of young people, young businesses in the jobs that also bringing in more people into jobs as well. So that's one. Aside from that, there's also been the immediate approach to stemming unemployment with the Empower program, where we have 500,000 youths across the country engaged directly by the federal government, even though they serve in all of the states and FCT. And let's also unpack that to say that each of these guys are also working in different spheres of our national life. Education, in schools, public primary schools, some even up to junior secondary schools, in healthcare facilities, a lot of the primary healthcare centers, when you visit them now, you actually have Empower officials, who are attending to them, and also in our farms. So that again, 500,000 out of the labor market, that also has a huge impact. And this is aside from the many others, in the MSME framework that we have been very much aggressive about through the
We'll have you come back again to talk to us more about the federal government's effort. But a lot of people are saying that there are no jobs, that there are no conducive environments. But hopefully we'll have you join us to talk more about
different, but even in the midst
what
of
the
it,
government is doing. We'd like to thank you so much, Mr. Falabi Mokrede, SSA, to the President on Job Creation, for coming on the program.
Thanks.
Well, reactions have been trailing the president's extension of tenure at the office of the acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Tanka Mohammed. One of those prominent lawyers is Barrister Jiti Ogunye. On our political flagship program, Sunday Politics, he said that the presidency is extending the tenure of the acting Chief Justice of Nigeria because of an unlikely possibility of the current outgoing 8th Assembly confirming the appointment of the acting CJN. He argues that the presidency is only buying time to see out the expiration of the 8th Assembly.
I can predict that it won't near a conclusion until we have a new National Assembly. And I can tell you why. If you look at the provisions of the Constitution, these provisions are worded, they are couched to ensure that there is independence of the judiciary, that judicial officers have security of tenure, that they are not removable from office by an overbearing executive for good or for bad reasons, intervening in the judiciary, and based on just whims and caprices, just intermeddling in the judiciary. So that's why these provisions are there. So to remove a CJN from office, a Chief Justice of Nigeria from office, going by the provision of the Constitution, I'm talking about Section 292 of the Constitution, I'm talking about Section 157 of the Constitution, which provides that if any member of the executive body established by Section 153 of the Constitution to be removed from office, and I'm talking about Section 157 as it relates to the National Judicial Council, of which Justice Onega was a chairman, it could only be removed by recourse to a 2/3 concurring vote of the Senate.
Well, the talk on the possible subsidy removal had put the nation in panic buying mode just before the Easter season, but the federal government was able to dispel the rumors about a possible fuel hike. Well, let's try to make some sense out of the fuel subsidy riddle, which has been a subject of debate. But first, here's a background to the issue of fuel subsidy from our correspondent, Dari Idowu.
In 2015, the pressure on petrol price forced the federal government to give in and hike the price of premium motor spirit with a cap limit of 145 naira per litre. Subsequently, oil marketers raised alarm over the sale of petrol at a price lower than the landing cost of PMS due to the rebound in global crude oil prices, a development that has become unsustainable and has forced governments to resume the payment of the differentials, which is now referred to as under-recoveries in the Federation account.
The last disclosure was about 189 naira per litre to be the effective market price of fuel, whilst it's being sold at 145 naira. So the differential is being borne by the government and is in effect actually a subsidy, despite the terminology be given to it to be an under-recovery.
At the spring meeting of the International Monetary Fund, the multilateral institution reiterated its age-long position on Nigeria's petrol subsidies.
We believe that removing fossil fuel subsidies is the right way to go. If you look at our numbers from 2015, it's no less than about $5.2 trillion that are spent on fuel subsidies and the consequences thereof.
In reaction, the federal government says it agrees with the IMF's recommendation, but notes that the removal of subsidies will require some buffers.
With the support of the legislature, we have to find a formula that works for Nigeria. And until we do that, we should not be contemplating removing the subsidy, because indeed when we do, there will be people that will suffer.
The best form of system to have is a free market system that's determined by the forces of demand and supply. So what I would think is that anything government can do to hasten up the cushion it has been talking about should be done as soon as possible.
Compilations of Nigeria's indirect expenditure on petrol subsidy shows a record 730 billion naira as of 2018, reducing government's revenues. With the dilemma of the removal, however, there is moderation in the inflation and the economic welfare of the citizens. Channels Television News.
All right, Temple Ashadri, many thanks with that report there. We'll take a break on lunchtime politics. When we return, we'll be taking a closer look at the issue of fuel subsidy and the medium-term expenditure framework. Join us again.